And now you're not getting rid of me, but I'll be doing a lot less talking. So I'd like to invite to the stage our absolutely all-star CFO panel to dive into, from the CFO perspective, how they're thinking about the ROI of AI inside their organizations. So Vadicel, Varun, Wajeeha, Chris, please come on and take the stage. First off, this is the best dressed panel we've ever had here. So thank you. Got to get more CFOs up here, clearly. All right, so let's start with a quick round of 30-second introductions. We can just go left to right. Chris, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Chris Asmis, CFO at The Farmer's Dog. We're a DTC fresh dog food business. I spent my whole life in finance in consumer businesses, and really exciting to be in such an agile, organization like The Farmer's Dog.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vadicel, COO and CFO of Ceremonia. It's a clean hair wellness brand, a startup 3 years old, rooted in Latinx community. So excited to be here. I started my career in JP Morgan as an investment banker, so super traditional finance route. Then figured out a way to get out and enter the startup world. And I've kind of jumped around across different industries.
Hi, I'm Wajeeha Ahmed. I'm the CFO of a company called Hungryroot. We are an online grocery service, direct to consumer, and I've been with the company for 2 years now. Prior to Hungryroot, I was in media finance for a long time, and prior to that, in a Fortune 500 company. So I feel like the size of the companies that I've worked with are kind of shrinking with each successive move. But I'm really excited to be here and excited to have this discussion.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Varun. I've been a CFO and a COO in B2B SaaS companies, the latest one being Lumar. Just as a disclaimer, been like the most famous, well-liked finance person, especially with the sales and marketing teams in all my jobs.
All right. No, I want to work with you in the future. Chris, by the way, once we got you on the panel, everyone on our marketing team made the same joke, which is that Farmer's Dog should cater the event, which I think just indicates that your commercials are really working. Like the food definitely looks super good.
On humans, as we say.
Oh yeah? What scale 1 to 10? How is it?
10, 11.
Oh, that voice crack kind of implied a different answer. All right. Let's get things started. So let's start with hearing about how you all are approaching the adoption of generative AI in your organizations. Are there specific use cases you're excited about? Wajeeha, how about we start with you?
Sure. So AI is very much kind of center for us in our product. What differentiates our service from other online grocery services is it's all about personalization. So, we get some information from our customers about what they're looking for, who they're feeding, do they know how to use a microwave, or are they using an air fryer, et cetera, et cetera. And then we are populating the cart for them. So we make it easy for them to shop. And we use a large-scale optimization model and machine learning to basically recommend food for people that we know that they're going to love and that is going to meet their needs. And their needs could be, I'm trying to eat more plants, I'm trying to cut sodium, I can't eat gluten, et cetera, et cetera. So the specific use case of Gen AI that I'm very excited about, and Joe, in our prep discussion, you used the term invisible hand, which I really liked, and I'm going to use it in all my investor discussions now. Sometimes people can think, okay, this machine learning or AI is like a black box, and they don't know what goes on inside it, right? And they receive their box every week, and they're excited about it, they like it, but they might not necessarily know why those items were picked for them. So the Gen AI use case that I'm very excited about is a way to translate why those items have been picked for them in an easy to understand language. For example, this upcoming week is going to be very cold. The weather forecast is that the temperatures are going to drop. So we have put more soup in your box because we think this is what you're going to want to eat. And to, again, put that in a simple language and explain to the customer so that when they get their box, they get, I don't know, a little leaflet or something that tells them the why, I think would be super fun. The business impact of it, we have a lot of data that shows that the better you can personalize the box, the better you make the unboxing experience. The retention rates are higher. People actually upsize their boxes. So, again, if AI could talk to them and say, hey, I noticed that you put more beverages in your box last week, so here's a drinks plan that you could add, we would have a direct AOV impact, right? So there is a very direct business result when A, you personalize better, and B, you can help people understand why you did it.
I love that use case, one, because of the clear business impact, but also the way it's sort of inverting the way that we often interact with personalized algorithms, right? Where, as we said, the invisible hand of it, but now actually turning that into a source of content and of relationship building with your customer. Absolutely fascinating. Varun, how about we go to you next?
Sure. So the earliest use cases we explored was also around offering the core product value with AI. Had two sort of angles to it. One, we didn't want to be a laggard in a market, and every other company that's worth their salt was putting out very quick conversational AI products, and we had to be there. Number two, we also could have gone to improve the productivity. For example, we have a professional services team that, so Lumar was a tech SEO platform, which analyzes the websites, kind of gives about reporting about like the health status of the company. And you would have like a professional services person that looks at the data and says, interprets and provides the output to the customer in terms of the health of the website. And we could have a language model which could interpret that and produce a usable result. And those were the very first use cases where you could have a tangible outcome that we could sell and create value for the company. And those were very fastly, adopted or explored without hesitancy about the costs, etc.
So jumping immediately to sort of an actual product, right, that you can put out there. It's fantastic. Chris, how would you go to you next?
We're still testing a bunch of different places of where to use it. A few places we're looking. We have our own customer service agents who talk directly with our customers, and so one thing would be fun to explore would be how can AI help customer service agents be more helpful quicker for customers, pull up information quicker. I've got the whatever problem, and the AI, is there a way to accelerate how fast an agent can come up with an answer for that customer and give them a solution? So direct, customer, enablement kind of stuff.
So it could be like, I'm logging into the farmer's dog and I'm like, I use the farmer's dog to cater my entire marketing event, and the reaction has been mixed. Please help me, and the AI will help you with that.
Yeah, and then that's the hope.
Yeah,
right. So that's one, and then others just the workplace efficiency kind of category. I think we're still in that zone and a few things too, and not done there at all. But I'm hopeful that there's lots of places to add value and get to answers quicker to help go solve problems. We have a lot of data, and the faster we can analyze data and come up with things to test or things to deploy, the faster we can operate as a business, and then the faster we could hopefully grow and evolve and so on.
Yeah, so we think back to that 3 horizon slide that Raphael showed. It sort of focused first on the customer experience, but also looking at the workforce efficiency. That makes a ton of sense. Yep. Vadicel, let's wrap it up with you.
Thanks. So right now where I am, I would say we're also in the early stages of it. However, what I would tell everyone who is holding a CFO role or even like a very top executive role at any company, typically you are placed in a position of a unique position of access to data across the entire organization. So being in this role, it's really thinking about what are the different functional areas of the business that you could really use a large language model where content is key. So in my experience, similar to Chris here in terms of the farmer's dog, it's looking at customer service and looking at frequently asked questions. So internally, you could think of all the frequently asked questions, but why not use the questions asked by actual customers, put it into Gen AI, and say, what are the top 10 questions asked? And that way, you could actually utilize that type of content and then feed it back into your internal processes. In another function, HR or hiring managers. So, something that takes a lot of time is writing job descriptions when you're hiring. That is widely available online. So, something that you could just get just a very quick snapshot of I'm looking to hire, and this is true, I'm looking to hire a demand planner. So, I just used it, job description for a demand planner for a startup. What does that look like? And I tweak it. So, what would have taken me possibly 20 to 30 minutes took me 5 to 10 minutes, and I got something that I was able to post.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So next, I'd like to get a little bit meta and pressure test sort of theory around bringing this panel together, right? Which is one thing that we're hearing in the market and seeing indications of is this idea that, entering into 2024, as we move past the hype and try and identify what's the actual return around generative AI, is that the office of the CFO will become a bigger and bigger player here in pushing forward these initiatives, especially as the role has really evolved to be more strategic over the last decade. But I want to see your thoughts on that. Do you agree, disagree? Anyone can feel free to jump in first.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think it's a pretty good segue from what I just mentioned. Again, as a CFO, in my position, I'm also COO. I have the unique ability to see all the different areas of the business and understand operational efficiency. I think in the very beginning, we talked about operational leverage. And so when you're running a business and you're trying to figure out where is my team spending their time, how can I open up that bandwidth to where they are actually utilized in the right way. So sometimes this is probably unconventional, but I follow this rule that everyone has a superpower and that everyone has skill sets where there's strengths and weaknesses. You have to be spending 80% of your time on your strengths. And when that balance starts to shift a little bit, and the idea of getting better with where your weakness areas are, I actually don't believe in, because you will never be as good in those areas as someone who excels in it. And so find your superpower and then figure that out. And I think as a CFO and a COO, again, you have the ability to see different areas of the business.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. Another one I've discussed with my team is that I think there's a potential generative AI to fill in the gaps where you do have existing weaknesses, right? Like if you just hate putting a project plan together, you can do that through a simple command in Notion. But anyway, we can come back to that. Anyone want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. I think ultimately we'll have to involve the CFO, right? Because firstly, if there's an investment required, right? If there's a tool that we now need to spend money on, we're going to need to know what's the return on it, right? How do I account for it? Whether it's increase in productivity, or is it like, are we investing in this tool means we're not going to incur something down the road? How do we quantify it? How do we look at it? So I just don't see a world where somebody else or another role has that sort of holistic view of the company, and then can connect the sort of the ambition and the theory of it with the numbers.
And so one I think common mistake that I'm seeing more and more in interviews with CEOs and a lot of the research that's come out is jumping into generative AI initiatives based on whatever, the sexiest new ideas internally without necessarily thinking about the business impact that it's tied to. I'm curious if this group has any sort of frameworks or heuristics that they would recommend that folks use to kind of evaluate the impact of those initiatives. Varun, maybe we can start with you.
Got it. Yeah, it comes back to just measuring the value, right? I'd leave probably two thoughts around that. So in the last kind of whole adoption cycle around SaaS, right? Like we were having on-premise software, and which was all capex. And then when we moved on to the SaaS world, one thing that definitely helped was the whole notion that it is OPEX and not CAPEX. So I could save $2 on a $3 spend. So easy sell. Like the SaaS adoption took off, and obviously a whole lot of benefits with it. Now, coming into AI, I just really think that the ball hasn't dropped yet, meaning we haven't really been able to quantify a material cost, or are you producing more revenues? Are you producing or reducing costs? If you're producing more revenues as a sales leader, are you willing to take on all this additional goal for on the back of this AI? And that becomes a hard conversation. All right, like you have all this productivity. Are you are you going to reduce expenses? Are you going to take away all these additional costs for bringing an AI application? And that becomes a very difficult conversation too. That is when the ball drops, and I feel like we have not gotten there yet because there's not enough data. What is very common I see as adoption is people are willing to take on tools that's not very expensive. You're not really betting the house, or even like a small furniture at this point in time, where you could use free tools and you could play around, get more productivity, etc. When you do ask for budget, what do you really show? And just giving the example of like nurses, right? If you're getting the nurses to be extra productive by having all this additional productivity for them, no, you could go about it in two ways. One, maybe we save the burnout of nurses, and like when you have a nurse leave due to a burnout, like that costs the hospital system maybe $600,000-$700,000. That's an easy ROI. Or what do we do with additional productivity? Do we have them in additional, like, be able to service more patients? Like those kind of data, until that come, that's when like the true adoption from like a budget allocation will start.
Yeah, that's definitely a smart way to think about the cost savings piece. Chris, what about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking. So for us, and maybe it feels it's early and it's too early to quantify a lot of benefit. So I would look at it as placing bets in different places, but I would want to look at it and investigate it both from the ROI could come from positive, things happening, grow sales, save costs, whatever. But the ROI could come from risk reduction too. And so we need to lean into figuring it out so that we can anticipate and then mitigate where bad stuff could happen, and have a game plan for that. And so I'm not sure we can even contemplate all the bad ways, AI could impact us, but I think we need to lean into it for the understanding those things too. So we're ready from an offense and defense standpoint.
I mean, that's a good segue into touching on risks, right? Have you had any conversations internally about how you evaluate or approach potential risks with generative AI?
Yeah, we've begun to talk about it. So risks could come from categories of like our data, unattendedly gets leaked out into the public world through, and there's been accidents that have happened. So that's a risk that we're trying to be mindful of. Risk number two could be AI gives us a wrong answer that we don't know is the wrong answer. Right? This confident, lying. The tool says here's your job spec, and then it's bad. And then so that could be a bad thing. Or bad things could be evildoers that want to attack us now have more tools and more sophisticated ways to kind of do bad stuff to us. And so we need to be, more vigilant or defensive, on things like that. So those are three categories that come to mind.
Yeah, it's a really good framework. Anyone else have had internal conversations around potential risks?
We have, and it's similar, right? So again, with customer information, we definitely want to make sure that while we are leveraging generative AI, but we're not sharing any of our customer information or putting it into a system where it can be at risk. As a CFO, there are certain tasks that happen in the finance org that I would love for a machine to do that a human doesn't have to do. But right now, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to put my information out there unless I know that it's a closed system and confidentiality is maintained. But yeah, I would love for somebody to do variance analysis for me that's not a human being.
I wonder, in your use case, have you had any conversations around, I don't know, telling you too much about yourself, right? So it's like, Joe, you have added and taken away that tub of ice cream in your shopping cart 37 times in your last trip. Like maybe you want that. Like, is there any places where, kind of Amazon style telling you you're pregnant before you actually are, where it gets a little bit too much?
Yeah, I mean, look, for us, it's early, so we've definitely not got to the stage where we're going to tell you you've had too much ice cream. But I think sometimes it's fascinating when you play it back to people, what their behavior looks like. Sometimes it's like an aha moment for them. So, but definitely things like sharing too much or sharing too early are considerations that we would make.
Amazing. I want to get to one more topic before we go to audience questions. A reminder, I should have said this at the top, but if you're on the virtual stream, please put your questions in the questions tab in the chat. Benji from our team will run them down here. If you're here in real life, think about any questions that you have for the panel, because we're going to have time for that in a second. But didn't want to leave here without hitting on how this is affecting the way that you think now or in the future around your sort of talent strategy and headcount planning, right? The promise here is that allows us to get more out of our teams. How does that come into the equation?
Yeah, I could get started with that. I think that it does. It's an evolution. It's never too early to really play around with Gen AI. I think Varun was saying there are a lot of free options out there, so you don't have to invest in it. That said, it's just starting to tweak with what you have today. So again, I gave the examples of a job description. What does that open up? And when you're thinking about what are you hiring for, now it's really looking at the function of the job versus the person itself that you're looking for, right? What are the things that this person or this candidate that you're hiring for has to do, and that it requires a human being to do without, or that will also be complemented by the use of AI. So I look back, I think I gave this example to this group before too, which is years ago, 10 years ago, iPhones or Android phones, whatever, they were an accessory, right? You didn't have to have them in your hand at all times. Nowadays, if you don't have it, you almost feel like you're missing a part of yourself. And so Gen AI is going to be that in the future. I really do believe it's going to be part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And so just start now and understand within each area how it's going to evolve that unique function.
Anyone else had conversations around this or thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a little early to know. You can imagine a scenario like, oh, if I had AI do my reconciliation of my XYZ report, that's going to save a certain amount of person hours. Has to do that. So great. There's a framework where that tool saves labor, but then maybe not. Maybe what happens is that exercise happens quicker or more efficiently. But now you need just as many people. Now it's more tantalizing. There's more things to analyze. There's more problems to figure out. There's more things to go dig into. Maybe we don't ever see less people, but now people are just doing more value added, kind of more interesting analysis, equipped with not having to do all this drudgery work, and now they're doing higher level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that on the sort of customer success standpoint, that it's going to have an impact on a brand like the Farmer's Dog at some point soon, right? If you're giving these tools to make them more effective, to coach them up, I mean, seemingly either you have higher performers, right? So you have less turnover, because one thing we see with generative AI is it tends to raise the bar of the lower skill workers, or you start automating more so you don't have to grow that org as quickly.
Yeah, it could be. It's like, hey, can you move my order from Tuesday to Thursday? And rather than a person doing that, it happens, instantly. Okay, that saves time. But then maybe we use that person to, have a higher level of engagement with that customer and talk about, I don't know, whatever, exercise habits or something. Maybe there's a way to kind of redeploy a person touch into different things that we're not even doing today.
Yeah, talk about whether specific meal plans you might have for certain breeds and how y'all think about that and the science behind the Farmer's Dog. Yeah, it's very interesting. Varun, I'm curious for you, in your experience across working with multiple companies on this, or any trend lines you see about how it's affecting headcount plans and talent strategy?
Yeah, I mean, at the lowest level, if you're looking for like a replacement or a headcount for any team, it's just a very simple decision to hire somebody with like the same functional talent but has AI knowledge on top of it versus like just a functional talent. So that is already happening, and I can see it in multiple places. Developer knows how to work in AI, let's get him. Finance person knows how to work with AI, let's get him. Has knowledge of data, let's get him. Right? What we are not yet seeing is the conversations around like real cost. Like, should we not hire additional headcount because AI can do it? Because I think it's a little ways away, and I believe that is going to come, irrespective of like how we say, like maybe we get more productive as a society, but that larger cycle still does not exclude the short-term impact of the workforce retraining and replacement, and that impact is just going to come, and that is just my personal thesis.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty right now. The MIT just came out with a report that they framed as only 23% of jobs have the potential to be impacted by generative AI in the short term, which is one of those interesting things where that can either be a panic headline, right? The sky is falling, a quarter of jobs are going to be impacted. But I guess it shows how much the conversation has moved. It was framed as like, everyone don't freak out as much as you might be. Wajeeha, let's wrap it up with you on this topic.
I mean, we're a fast growing company, so we're definitely not at a stage where we can say, okay, we're going to cut jobs. Hypothetically, there are discussions around, okay, if there is more adoption of AI in day to day jobs, so not our core product, but in customer services or finance or, engineering. There is this hypothetical discussion around maybe instead of adding, 20 people next year, we could add 10, right? But it's still early days. The case still has to be made. And also, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm only going to ask you for 10 additional headcount instead of 20, I'm like, well, we never had the 20 conversation. So that's just kind of up there as a theoretical reference, right? But over time, I think we'll have more data points that will either prove that or not.
Okay, note to self, talk to our head of finance, Chris, about 20 people when I really want 10. Yeah, just see that in there. All right, Chris, we'll talk later.